Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to Church Online. My name's Wesley, and it is a privilege to have all of you joining us this Saturday morning. And although we can't be meeting in the building, I really hope and pray that as we connect online, that this is helping you in your faith journey. As a church community, we truly believe that God is still active in our lives, and although we can't meet together most weekends as we used to, we still believe that God is doing something new in and through our lives. And today it is my privilege to introduce to you two really significant and special people in our faith community. And today, so I've got two awesome people, and I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves. So how about we start off with you?
All right, my name is Luke. I serve on the production team here at Gracegate. Yeah, that is me, basically.
Now, Luke, that is a really humble intro to you, because you do serve on the production team, but honestly, you run the whole sound and a lot of the stuff that happens on our stage. And I know it was your birthday this past week, so happy birthday. If you see Luke, wish him a happy birthday. But I think you're also the youngest person on our staff team at Gracegate, but probably with the most knowledge on technology and how it all works. So yeah, we're really grateful to have you on team. And how about you?
I'm Roslyn, and I come to Gracegate. I've done different things over the years, like help in the kitchen and those sorts of things, but now I think I've retired from a lot of those hats.
I really hope not.
Helps that we're not meeting and having lunches and things. I do a little bit with the young mums, and just generally available if and when they need someone for a job.
Yeah,
That's it.
that is very true. And Ros, I hope you haven't retired, because I think as a community and those who've been here for a while, we know you make some of the best food, and especially your pumpkin pie. I mean, there's a big rave about your pumpkin pie. So please don't retire ever.
All right. I think you may have just oversold it, but that's all good.
I don't think I have. We could get our community to write now on the chat if you second how great Roslyn's pumpkin pie is. Just put it on the chat right now. But yeah, we're grateful to have you as part of our community, Ros. And also, you're also involved in Starting Point.
Oh, yeah.
As well as you also help out a lot with people in pre-marriage counseling and doing Symbis, which, is also an awesome environment to have you in. So that's cool. So, guys, currently we're in the series called Something New, and we've been looking at something new in various areas of our lives. And this week we're speaking about something new at work. What comes to your mind as soon as I say the word work?
My mind is Gracegate, because I work here. So, but I love work when it comes to it, which to some people would sound crazy, but to others, they'll be like, yes. But yeah, I love my job. So whenever I think about work, I just think about production, tech, and just my love for it. So yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's great to hear, Luke. I don't think that's everyone's understanding or first thing that comes to their mind when they think of work, but that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
How about you, Ros? When you think of the word work, what comes to your mind?
All right, not quite so much the vibe of Luke and all his youthful energy. I think of work as something you have to do, and something that you have seasons in, and there are times that you're passionate about it and you're excited and you love it, and then there's other times where you're burned out and you don't enjoy it, and you just think, why do I have to do this? What else could I do? How did I end up in this job?
Yeah. Yes. I can relate, and I think a lot of people are thinking that. And it's been a really difficult season for a lot of people working. I think, for a lot of people, it's been challenging to even work from home, how to get work done, COVID going around, the challenges around that. But today we're excited because Jamie Laneson is going to share the message today. and he's going to lead us in helping us see something new at work. So before we get into that, we're going to sing some songs together. And this is, again, a time that we can just, invite God into our hearts, and a time where we can just prepare ourselves for the message and for what God actually wants to communicate with us today. So I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, at home maybe, why not even stand up today as we sing these songs together, and let's just give God all the praise that He deserves.
Hey, we're so glad you could join us for Church Online this morning. We're about to sing about how there's nothing that our God can't do. He is the God of the impossible. So let's praise Him and remember that when we're singing these songs, and lift Him up in worship.
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. And just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't
Lord, can you hear me? I'm here, fighting, pressing to remember what you said. But this onslaught of thoughts fills my head with dread, and I need you. Like enemies encamped, shrouded in the dark, I can feel the fascination of too many temptations reaching for my heart. So I need you to hear me. For I know your ears are attentive to the righteous, and I know that your ways are certain. Even when my worries would trample me to dust, still, I know you are good. Your hand is just. So come now, be the salvation for my sins. Help me to begin again, that you would mend this trend of hopelessness. God, deliver me in my brokenness. I can feel your presence, even now in the ugly, in the mess that has been made. You surround me with your benevolence. Yes, your love is on display, and I can see it. Carving roads through the struggles and the troubles, past temptations and devices that seek to choke me out. So come fear, come failure, come opposition or doubt. Jesus, you are my deliverance. Your grace is sufficient. Trusting you is my only way out. Now I turn my mind to dwell on your truth. Curate the condition of my heart to manifest joy. Be my living proof. Subdue the haters, quell the voices inside. Transform me, Lord. Extinguish my pride. You've won the battle. I trust in your plans. Yes, God. I surrender all my worries, my woes, and my demands into your eternally capable hands.
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. Oh yes, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Yeah. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
We have been going through this series called Something New, and we've been diving deep into the different aspects of our lives to see how we can become more aware of what God is working on behind the scenes, whether that's in our community or our health or our finances or at home, everywhere. We can actually have hope that God is working on something bigger. And today we have the challenge of exploring something new in one of the areas of our lives that I think many of us might not love the sound of. And that is something new in our work. Oh man, did I just say work? Why on earth would we want to talk about work on the weekend? I mean, Many of us have just spent our entire weeks at work, and we were so glad to wake up on a Saturday morning realizing that it's finally the weekend. We can finally rest, we can finally relax, and we can forget about work for a couple of days. But then this guy just had to go and bring it up, crashing back down to reality. What a way to ruin a perfectly good weekend. Surely church is the absolute last place where we want to talk about work, and I hear you. But to be fair, most of us are going to spend a huge portion of our adult lives at work. So if we're trying to figure out where God is doing something new in our lives, then it would actually make sense to look at our work. And I think that doing this carries a lot of significance and could be hugely beneficial. So to start off, I'm going to ask you to do something that you're probably not going to like. And I'm not just doing it to be mean, I promise. I think we need to do this just for a moment so that we can really get into the right mindset for this conversation, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. So wherever you are, if it's in your lounge or your bedroom or your friend's house or outside even, take a moment to stop. And I want you to have a think about what work looks like for you. Try to forget that it's the weekend for a second and close your eyes if you need to, but just pretend that it's a Monday morning, or maybe it's the start of your shift. What does work look like for you? Do you work in an office or a clinic or a cafe or a shop? Are you a tradie? Do you deal with clients or customers? Do you have tight deadlines or high expectations? Or are you maybe a student at school or university? For me, I run a small business, and no 2 days are the same. My goodness. I mean, some days will be packed with back-to-back meetings, jumping between creative brief sessions with clients and design review meetings, and sometimes networking meetings with other business owners. But other days will be entirely project-based, and I'll be working away at my desk with my head down and my headphones on, just completely blocking out the world. Some days will be very reactive, fielding phone call after phone call after phone call and constantly replying to emails in an endless effort to empty my inbox. And those are definitely the days that I find the most challenging. But overall, it's very deadline driven. Most of my work has a very clear start and a very clear finish. And it's also quite demanding, both in terms of time, but also in brain capacity. I need to be creative in the work that I produce for my clients by focusing on one task at a time, but then at the same time, I also need to wear many different hats to run a business and be able to switch between lots of different tasks very, very quickly. So when you start to think about your own work, how do you feel? What sort of emotions or feelings can you start bubbling up to the surface when you think about the environment or the tasks or the people or the expectations that you have at work? How do you feel knowing that you'll probably be going back to work next week? Maybe you're in the amazing position where work is an absolute joy. I mean, Monday morning rolls around and before your alarm's even gone off, you spring up out of bed ready to charge into the week head first. If that's you, I am genuinely so happy for you. For a lot of people though, I'll bet thinking about work starts to make you feel a little uncomfortable or a little bit anxious, or maybe a little bit nervous or a little bit worried. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, work is that place where you have things that need to be done, and you need to do those things on time and to a certain standard or a certain level in order to earn money. And just when you're finished with that list of things to do, there always seems to be more to do. There's always more around the corner. I mean, maybe for you, work is absolutely hectic. You're constantly running around, fighting fires, and every second person who you speak to wants something from you right now. And each day just flies past before it's even begun. But maybe it's the complete opposite. I mean, maybe for you, work is totally boring. You rock up to work and, before you've even said hi to anybody, you're just counting down the hours to leave. Maybe for you, work is so stressful that it's actually overwhelming. I mean, you spend your evenings dreading going in the next day because of pressure from deadlines or feeling totally out of your depth, and it consumes your mind, so it's the only thing you're able to think about. Now, considering how much of our lives we'll be spending at work on average, that doesn't really sound like a great way to live. I mean, work can take so much energy from us, and it can often feel like our whole existence revolves around work. I mean, we live to go to work so that we can earn money so that we can live, so that we can go back to work? Now, you've probably heard of this thing called hustle culture. And in case you haven't, hustle culture is basically this modern lifestyle that prioritizes your work above everything else. It promotes super long hours and a relentless focus on your work. But it often does this at the expense of your home life. And it's usually popularized on social media by business owners and entrepreneurs and freelancers. And they use catchy phrases like rise and grind and hashtag thank God it's Monday. And it perpetuates this idea that we need to work crazy hours to be successful. And ultimately it encourages us to find our value and our self-worth in our work. And there are plenty of people who swear by this hustle culture, arguing that their success is because of a relentless focus on their work. I mean, take Elon Musk, for example, right? He's one of the richest people on the planet. In fact, as of today, I think he might be the richest person in the world. And he famously tweeted that there are definitely easier places to work than his company Tesla. But, and I quote, "Nobody ever changed the world on 40 hours a week." I mean, for context, his employees will regularly exceed 80 hours of work a week, which is quite a lot. But on the flip side, there are people who describe this as burnout culture. And there are studies showing that overworking like this can actually impact your health by increasing your risk of high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes. Now, whether or not hustle culture is a good thing is probably a conversation for a different day. But whichever side of the fence you're on about it, I think there's no denying that society today places a tremendous amount of importance on our work, which can put a lot of pressure on us as workers. So it would be pretty easy to say then that we should just not work hard. I mean, if our current work culture is so intense that it can lead to burnout, wouldn't it just be easier and better for our health if we went to work? Sure. But what if we didn't actually try to do a good job? Maybe we could just scrape on by and just do the bare minimum. What's interesting is that we can see very clearly in the Bible that it is, in fact, a good idea to work hard at your job. If we do work hard, as we'll soon see, we're much more likely to benefit from the time that we're spending at work. I mean, for example, in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, it says that all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. If you want to achieve something or gain something, then it requires action or effort or work. But just talking about something without any action won't give that same reward. If you want that promotion or if you want that pay rise, then you're going to have to work hard to get it. In Colossians 3, we're actually encouraged to not only work hard, but to work really hard. I mean, we find that Paul, who was one of Jesus' followers, he provides an outline of how we should be living our lives as followers of Christ. And in verses 23 to 24, he says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving." Now, Paul's message here is very clear. Well, whatever it is you do, work at it with all your heart. Not just some of your heart, but all of your heart, as if you were working for God, not for your boss. How would you work if you were working for God? The creator of you and me, the creator of everything that's around us. How would you work for him? I'd bet you'd probably not just try to fly under the radar. Now, this can be a pretty confusing and confronting thought. I mean, your boss at work isn't literally God. So it can feel a little counterintuitive to work at your job as if you were working for God. Now, I think what Paul tries to encourage us to do here is to shift our perspective when it comes to our work and change our mindset so that we're actually serving God through our work and keeping our eyes focused on him. In Romans chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." A living sacrifice. I mean, in other words, while we're still here, alive on this earth, dedicating our entire lives and everything that we do to God. And that includes while we're at work. Is this how we're living our lives right now? Is this your perspective when you rock up to work? Is it my perspective when I rock up at work? Now, the reality is that most of us will spend a huge portion of our lives at work, probably close to 1/3 of our entire adult lives, which is insane. And a lot of the time that can even spill over into other areas of our lives, like our evenings or our weekends or our days off. And we're often still thinking about work. And I think this is exactly why it's so important for us to think about something new in the context of our work, because we spend so much of our time and energy there. And we've got our heads down and our blinders on, and we're focused on the tasks that are in front of us, rather than actually putting our focus on God. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally find it really, really difficult to tune into God while I'm at work. It's actually the last thing that I'm likely to think about at the office. I'm so much more likely to be focused on replying to emails in that never-ending battle to keep my inbox empty, or breaking down my project into little bite-sized pieces so I can make sure I hit those looming deadlines. I mean, there's just so much stuff that keeps us distracted at work from pursuing a relationship with God. And I think a lot of us actually struggle with this separation between work and God. I mean, in the busyness or the hecticness of our work, it's so easy to default to this position where God takes a back seat in our lives. And we might not even realize that we're doing it, but by neglecting our relationship with God in our workplaces, we can actually start to feel like He's not there for us. What if we're so focused on our work that we're missing out on opportunities to see God every day? Let me say that again. What if we are so focused on our work that we are missing out on opportunities every single day to see and experience God? I mean, we can see very clearly in the Bible that God actually is with us at all times. And that does include while we're at work. I mean, we see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst? So this is where we can actually find a really exciting opportunity. I mean, if God is already here, if His Spirit is already within us, then He's already doing His part, whether you're aware of it or not. It's actually up to us to tune into Him. I think we need to learn how to integrate God into our work. I mean, we can get so caught up on what's in front of us at work that it's easy to get distracted from trying to develop this relationship with God. But what if we found ways of reminding ourselves throughout the day that He is always with us, that He is for us and He's not against us, that He has His hand over us and He's got a better future for us? One of the best things that I think we can do to try and bridge this disconnect between God and work is making sure that we're taking time to pause, even if it's just for a few moments at a time throughout the day, and make an active effort to try and find God in the ordinary. And the best way that I can think of describing this is by using a phrase that we do often hear a lot at church, and it's often in the context of our everyday lives or in the relationships we have with the people around us. But it's this idea of being present. And that doesn't just mean physically present, like just sitting here and existing, but it means, more importantly, being mentally present. So looking up from our work for a moment to make sure that we're truly aware of our surroundings, realizing that there actually is more to life than work. When we're present, we're so much more likely to be able to enjoy life for what it is and for what God has given to us. And by doing that, we're actually taking one step closer to Him. Now, I'm certainly not an expert at this. I'm often guilty of getting sucked so deeply into my work that it's literally the only thing I can think about. I mean, I had an example today where I was supposed to take a short detour out of work, and literally the only thing I could think of was an email that I had received just beforehand and how I was going to respond to it. I mean, I am terrible at this. And when I'm in this headspace, it's crazy how I can even have a conversation with somebody but not even really hear what they're saying. I mean, they'll be standing in front of me saying words to me, and I'll be saying some words back in response, but then later down the track, I can't even remember what it was we were talking about. And what I've realized is that when I'm so consumed by my work, my relationships actually suffer. And I really don't think that that's what God wants for us or what He's got planned for our lives. So what can we do to try and be present at work? Well, okay, what if we started our morning routine off with a prayer? I mean, maybe if we know that it's going to be a big day ahead, or to be honest, even if it's not, what if we said a prayer to God? What if we asked him to be reminded throughout the day that he's always there and always around us, no matter what the circumstances are? Or what if we invited God into our ordinary everyday work activities? I mean, maybe before we reply to that email that's really grinding our gears, we can take a few moments to find God's peace and his grace. What if we were also present in our relationships at work? I mean, our clients or our colleagues or customers or even bosses. Maybe we can spare a moment to check in on how they're going and ask if there's any kind of need that they need help with. I mean, after all, we're called to love one another, right? And that doesn't just stop while we're at work. That's a full-time, round-the-clock kind of a thing. And all in all, I think the key here is to make sure that we're being intentional about being present. And we talk about this concept a lot, but it's one of those things that doesn't really happen by accident. I mean, it's very unlikely that we'll accidentally stumble into being present, especially when there's so much other stuff around us to do at work and there's so much extra stuff to focus on and think about and that's distracting us. What we need to do is find a way to disrupt our normal work routines and mindsets so that we can establish little micro habits to become better at being present at work. I challenge you today to think of one thing that you do at work on a regular basis. Something you do maybe 5 times a day or 10 times a day or maybe even 20 times a day. Something you do regularly. Something that you could use as a trigger in your day to make you stop for just a moment, just a few seconds, and actually acknowledge God. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I mean, to be honest, it's probably better if it's not. It could literally be every time you get up from your desk to go and get a glass of water, or every time you go to use the printer, or every time you're about to make a phone call or reply to an email. Whatever other regular thing it is you do repeatedly at work, pick one little thing and make that your trigger for acknowledging God. And that acknowledgement itself doesn't even have to be a massive thing. I mean, it could literally be 5 seconds, just 5 seconds where you say, God, I know you're with me. If you're feeling bold, you could try 10 seconds. You could say, Lord, thank you for looking out for me and giving me the strength to keep going today. If you're feeling crazy, you could try 15 seconds. The whole point of doing this is to try and help us break away from this constant onslaught of work with small but regular touch points with God so that we can continue to grow in our faith even while we're at work. I mean, 10-second pauses just a few times a day, that's not going to end the world, but it could be the very thing that helps us to build thriving and life-giving relationships with God. Hey, if you're feeling discouraged about work right now, if you're feeling weighed down or burnt out or stuck or overwhelmed or just generally over it, I want you to know that God has got tomorrow covered. Even when we can't see it, I mean, God is working on something huge, something new that we probably can't even imagine or comprehend in our own minds. I mean, we find this truly amazing promise in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, and it says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future." Wow. God literally says, he doesn't just say it, he actually declares it. He declares, I know the plans I have for you. He's already set out a plan in each of our lives. He knows what's around the corner and around the next corner, around the next corner, before it's even happened, before we even realize it. And these aren't just average plans. I mean, these are plans to prosper you. In other words, these are plans that will help us to flourish and to thrive and to succeed. These aren't plans to harm us or derail us or to hurt us. These are actually plans that can give us hope for the future. And this incredible promise makes it so undeniably clear that the best is yet to come. It might be hard to see it in our everyday lives. It might be hard to see it while we're at work. But God is working on something new, even while we're there at work. And check this out, just a couple of verses later, in Jeremiah 29 verse 13, it says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Make it your priority to seek God regularly at work. Look up every now and again, and you will find him. I think it's fair to say in our culture today that we can't really avoid spending a lot of time at work. I mean, we kind of need to do it in order to live. But that doesn't mean that it has to be this enormous chunk of time where it's without God. I mean, we can seek God in the workplaces, and if we can do this with all of our hearts, we will find him. And I can only imagine what he's got planned for us. Let's say a prayer. God, today we are so thankful that you are always with us, Lord. Even when we can't see it, even when we don't feel your presence, Lord, we know actually you are always there. And we pray, Lord, just for awareness, God. Just help us to lift our heads and to be present at work. Because we know that you've got something new planned for us, God. We know you've got the future covered, Lord, and we're so grateful for that. And if we can just tune into you, if we can use the time at work to actually build a relationship with you, then I think we're set up for success, Lord. So please continue to be with us. In your glorious name, amen.
All right, guys, what a message from Jamie. I'm feeling inspired, I'm feeling encouraged, but also very challenged to see God at work.
Definitely.
What are some of your first thoughts and learnings just from the message that we've just heard?
I'll go. So, firstly, if you don't know Jamie, he is the most hardworking guy I've ever met. So if you ever meet him, most hardworking guy, and is also, his work ethic is amazing as well. So he's an awesome guy. What I got most out of it was basically just like the perspective of how hard I work, or how like my work ethic as well. Like, am I relating God with my work? Is definitely a big factor.
Yeah, love that. And I can testify to that. Jamie, he's a diligent hard worker, and so him sharing this message has so much more weight as well, right? What else? What are some of the key learnings, some of the things that stand out that he spoke about that come to your mind?
Just overall, there's a lot for me to think about in the message that Jamie just shared, and I'll probably be mulling it over probably for weeks to come, long after we've finished the series. In general, I think I quite compartmentalize work. Like, work for me is very much about being on task, and I think in general I'm a bit of a task-orientated person. That being said, I do work with people all day, every day, so I must be a people-orientated person as well. But just stopping and being aware of what God is doing within my day at work, and being much more conscious and intentional about reflecting on that and what he may be wanting me to potentially do within the environment that I work in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the mind shift that a lot of us are going to have to take home from this message, is that whole thing that like God is at our work. He wants to use us. He wants to use us to make a difference, and that, God is not just at a building or at church on a weekend, but is at our work environment. So love those thoughts coming out.
I don't think, just interrupting,
Yeah,
sorry.
go.
Like, I go to work and I know that God is with me, but I haven't really considered that God is in my environment and God is at work within my work. It's like God was a personal thing to me, not God is using me within his work at my work.
Yes.
It's like, oh.
Can you say that again?
No, I can't.
That was so good. Well, rewind if you missed that, but that I love that. Yeah.
It's like boxes within boxes within boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the value I think that he spoke about, being present. For me, pausing. I think, we get so busy that we're, forgetting how to actually speak kindly to each other, or, we lose our focus at work because we're in that, you shared actually earlier, that hustle culture, right? Did you want to speak a bit about that, Luke?
Yeah, I guess like the hustle culture factor of the work is just like overworking, if you know what I mean. So it's where I'm not like I'm working too much and I'm not actually taking care of myself or actually adding in what God's trying to do in my life. Which is big. It's also the factor of like my family as well, having to make sure that I've got enough room for them and enough room for school as well. Just not working too hard, but still working as hard as I can. Yeah.
So it's working hard, but then also making sure that we're not overworking, that it's
Overclocking,
impacting our other environments that God wants us to be present in as well.
Definitely.
So love that. What would be big take home for you guys? What are you going to take home? Well, what would be your challenge for like yourself or for someone listening today on Monday morning if they get to work? What do you hope you will be doing, or what do you hope they would be doing?
Oh, for me, like just as a take home, what I've started doing recently is just praying. I reckon prayer is a massive factor to bring God into the workplace, especially for myself. Prayer helps me get through the day. If I need to talk to God, He's there. Like it's open for prayer. No one's stopping you from praying. That's definitely a big one that I find.
Yeah, and so valuable that there's someone that we can turn to. Maybe we're struggling on a tough day at work, and yet we can take that pause and we can say, "Hey God, just help me through this. Give me some time." Yeah. What are you thinking, Roz?
Yeah, I'd also kind of clocked that practice the pause thing that Jamie was talking about. Stopping in the midst of activity, not necessarily in the midst, but when I have my morning tea or my lunch break, potentially. At the minute now, I've gotten into the habit of going outside to eat. In the past, I'd always just go in the tea room, but now it's a chance to take my mask off and have actual fresh air, not just air-conditioned air, which is quite nice. But, he said, when you do a certain activity, be repetitive about it. Just start to make a habit where you just check in with God and what He may be wanting to tell you, or what potentially nudge you might be getting or whatever. So perhaps being a bit more aware and intentional about using those times when I go outside and you're surrounded by nature. Why not actually check in and go, hey, how are we tracking today? Is there something different that I need to be kind of aware of as far as when I go back into this environment with my patients or with my colleagues or that sort of a thing?
Nice.
Yeah, that's so good, and I like that. Trying to actually create a habit of that, so that it's instilled. That maybe it's before we get out the car at our workplace, we're taking that pause and we're saying a prayer, or we're saying, asking God to help us, or asking God to help me to see my colleagues or to see my clients and to see people in the way that He sees them, so that I can, be able to help them and make a difference. That's good. Any last thoughts as we wrap up today?
Oh, one last thought. I reckon just the balance of God and work is massive. Balancing that, so hey, God's always present in the workplace. You're not hiding that. Feel free to open up to other people about it as well, and get past that barrier. I feel like that barrier is one of the toughest things to get through with work colleagues and things. Is being open about your religion, being open about that factor, and opening up.
Oh, I love that, Luke. It's like actually we've got some gold. We've got a God who's for us, and some of our colleagues may be needing to hear that there's a God who loves them and who's for them. And so having the courage and to do it in a way that isn't Bible bashing, I guess, or but actually in a way that is really helpful. And so that's awesome. I think a good way could be like you shared, even praying sometimes for our colleagues or clients or whatever that may be. That's good.
One of the things I've learned over the years, as far as that kind of dynamic goes, has been I don't go with the responsibility to kind of convert anyone or to challenge anyone. I go with the responsibility to be genuine and make relationships with people and be transparent about my own self and beliefs if and when they ask. But it's all based on relationship. And in the past, people would say, "What are you doing this weekend, Rosalind?" And I'd say everything I was doing apart from going to church, because I felt awkward about what they might think. And over the years, kind of say, "Well, I've got church on Saturday." And even the fact that it was a Saturday instead of a Sunday,
Yeah.
that's always a bit of a conversation
Yeah.
starter as well.
Yeah.
But my friends, my colleagues are my friends, and they
That's awesome.
they will ask things, and they are interested in if and when there is need, the relationship's there, and it is genuine at that point. It's not me offering helpful wisdoms or advice or whatever
Yeah.
that no one really wants to hear.
Yeah. I love that, because I think that's where God really wants to use us, especially as Jamie echoed, like we spend most of our life at work.
Yeah.
So wouldn't God want to be using us to, help make a difference and care for our colleagues? And I think that for me, that's a take home, is that, when I'm coming to work or when I'm working with people, to again, even though I work for a church, it can be really easy to forget the God who's at work, and to actually be asking God, actually help me to see people, help me to see their needs, help me to care for my colleagues and those who are around me. So that's the take home for me. I think it's been helpful, and I think even in this current season where a lot of people are challenged, in their working environments, I think it's so difficult for so many people, especially with COVID and the challenges that brings. To really be inviting God into our workspace and to know that you can be a catalyst for someone at your work environment as well. So, yeah, that's awesome. I am really grateful. Oh, Rose, did you want to share one last thing?
I was just going to add, just maybe because I have to have the last word,
Go for it.
with what you were saying as far as pressures and things that people are experiencing, or even if you're just in a job that isn't the dream job that you imagined, or you're not where you hoped that you would be at a particular point in your life, how Jamie spoke about there is hope. And God says to us, I know the plans I have for you, plans for hope and a future. And then bringing in what you said about praying towards what it is that God wants you to be doing, or what your role and your purpose is, whether it's a perspective change in your current environment, or whether there is something different that He might have for you down the track as well. That's something that in different seasons of my working life, I probably would have really benefited from if I had changed my perspective instead of just being frustrated within a role that I didn't want to be doing anymore. So, yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's gold, because I think that's a big take home, is let's see where God may be wanting to change our perspective at our work environments. So, guys, I appreciate your time and being with me today. I appreciate who you guys are. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. And for everyone at home, thank you for joining us as well. And I hope you are feeling encouraged, also challenged. And why not take some time and write down one action step that you're going to implement as you go into your workplace on a Monday morning. Where can you see God? What is the thing that you want to be doing that can bring, I guess, even more life and hope and grace and encouragement in your workplace? And why not even grab a friend and speak to them a bit about your work environment, what's going on, and see how, where can I look again and see God in that environment. But also, we are currently running a community survey for our church, and we would love to hear your thoughts. So we have this survey. It's on our website, or if you go on our social media, you can find a link where you can click it. And really, we're just asking a number of questions that's just going to help us to serve you better and all the environments that we have here at Gracegate. So if you can do us a huge favor, just now take a few minutes. It's only going to take, I think, about 7 minutes to answer some of these questions, maybe even quicker than that. And this feedback is really going to be helping us so that we can continue to help our community and make a difference. So if you can do that, I think there might be a link even on Church Online right now. But other than that, thank you for joining us. Next week, we're ending this series as we are going to be speaking about something new in the Word, and we'd love for you to join us again Have an incredible weekend, and God bless you all.